So in this video we're going to be taking a look at this ex-ADF Unimog when we're working out how to drive it and how the winch operates. So this is a 1984 Mercedes-Benz Unimog U1700 and it's ex-Australian Defence Force. So let's begin with specifications, and unladen mass on the rear axle is 2740 kilograms. On the front axle it's a bit over 4 tons. The maximum weight on the rear axle is 7 tons, which means you can put 4.2 tons on the back axle. On the front axle the maximum weight is 5300 kilograms, and that means you've got 1240 kilograms extra you can put on the front axle. So adding it all up, that gives us an unladen total of 6800 kilograms and a gross vehicle mass of 12,300 kilograms. So payload is 5.5 tons and it can tow up to 12 tons. The engine is a 5.7 litre 6-cylinder inline turbo diesel. It produces 124 kilowatts at 2800 RPM, 520 newton meters at 1800 RPM, 700 RPM idle. There's 160 litres of diesel, and according to the Army, the fuel consumption is around 25 litres to the 100 kilometres. The turning circle is 16.8 metres compared to about 13 for a Ford Ranger. There's disc brakes on all 4 wheels and the wading depth is 1.2 metres, but we didn't test it. Now spot what's unusual here. Can you see it? Well, it's what you can't see. The prop shaft is entirely encased in this tube to protect it against mud and debris, and it's also pressurised against water ingress when the vehicle is selected into 4-wheel drive. Now, as far as tyres are concerned, the Unimog has 4 equal tyres, unlike tractors, plus a spare. The stock size is 12 by 20, which equates to 44 inches, and that had tubes in them. This particular vehicle is running 405/70/24, which is a 46-inch overall diameter, about 1.2 metres. Tyre pressures, according to the Australian Defence Force, are front 80 psi, rear 120 for highway running, then 80 102 for what they term cross country, and sand 58 front and rear. I've translated that from kilopascals to psi, which is more commonly used. It is really important to vary the tyre pressures, not only for off-road performance, but because the Unimog can go from about 7 tonnes unladen to 12 tonnes laden. That's a huge difference, and the more weight you have in a vehicle, the greater pressure needed in the tyres. Now, we did discover a problem with the tyres, and if I zoom in a bit, you can see what I'm talking about. Those numbers mean 0804, and that is the 8th week of 2004, making these tyres around 20 years old. So that is too old. We can debate whether tyres that are 5 years, 10 years are too old, but I think everyone would agree 20 is too old. The owner has since changed those tyres, but we have a little test to see how they perform. There's a hand throttle, which we'll talk about when starting and stopping the vehicle, and this is how it works. This is the park brake, air operated. It operates only on the rear wheels, so if you want to have the effect of the parking brake on all 4 wheels, put the vehicle into 4-wheel drive, particularly if you are facing downhill off-road. There is no low range, but there are 8 forward speeds and a crawl ratio of 82:1 forwards and 77:1 going backwards. And this series of lights helps you figure out what gear you're in. There is no reverse gear per se. You just switch this lever and then the vehicle will then go backwards using the same gears that it does for going forwards. Now here's a diagram of how the gearbox works. It starts off with an input shaft to the engine, and then there's a reverse idler, which you can't really see, but that's where that is. There's actually a 4-speed gearbox only, and it manages to get 8 gears by engaging or not engaging a set of planetary gears, which are engaged for gears 1 to 4, but not for gears 5 to 8. Then it works its way down to drive towards the rear permanent, because it is a part-time 4-wheel drive system. There's a dog clutch, and when that's engaged, you have 4-wheel drive. Now here's the gear ratios. There are definitely 8 forward speeds. There may be 8 rear speeds as well, or there may be 4. I've got conflicting information and documents. If you know more, please comment. Also, it's unusual because the forward gears are slightly lower than the reverse gears. So let's look at the Unimog's drive modes. Here it is in two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and got the rear wheel spinning. As you can see, there's no drive going to the front axle whatsoever, and you can see those 3 wheels there doing nothing, and only one wheel is spinning. That's the rear left. Now what I'm going to do is switch it from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive. That light comes on. Here's another view of it, 2 to 4, there's the light, and that's what happens. We've now got the front axle and we can drive up. Now you should only do this at very low engine RPM, not with the wheels spinning massively. Obviously risk of damage, so I've just done it pretty much at idle. But with four-wheel drive we can now continue. However, we are now cross-axled in four-wheel drive. We've got diagonal wheels spinning in the air or just on the ground, so we're not going anywhere at this point either. If you want to know more about differentials, I've got another video on why this is happening. So let's put the cross-axle differential locks in the front and rear. That light comes on, there's another view of it, switch that over, 2 lights on, and look at that, we've now got all 4 wheels turning at an equal speed, and the vehicle can continue up and over because we're now getting drive or torque to the front left and rear right wheels. Now this is where I make an error. I'm driving up with feet off the pedals, just using the idle to crawl up the hill, and as you can see there's not quite enough revs to be able to do that because I've set the hand throttle a little bit too low and the vehicle has stalled. However, this then allows me to demonstrate how to do a hill start in a Unimog, and the way to do that is I just put the foot on the brake, restart the engine, set the hand throttle higher, and then bring my foot up on the clutch gently, and as I get to the biting point with the RPM set higher, then all I do is just release the brake and off we go. And if you look closely you can actually see that I pull away with the brake light still on. So that's an effective way to do a hill start in vehicles like this. Now there is a failed hill climb technique called the stall stop and key start, and I was curious to see if it would work with the Unimog. And we're out of revs. So what I'm going to do now is turn that off, put the park brake on, secure the vehicle, and check all is good before I'm going to come back, put the vehicle into reverse, which is going to involve the clutch. Now that's done, we'll take the park brake off, release the foot brake, and now should be able to just start her in gear. Yep, that works pretty well. Now to do a 3-point turn, all I've got to do is put my foot on the brake, keep it on the brake, put the car into reverse, and then I'm just going to bring the clutch up whilst keeping my foot on the brake, and then there's enough torque to be able to do that. However, you can see that the rear wheels I think are slipping a bit, like that. So we can actually do that 3-point turn just by keeping your foot on the brake, and if you need more revs, just increase the revs with the hand throttle, and then that works really well. And I actually find this lever just to go forwards backwards easier than shifting the car in and out of reverse, so I'm actually a big fan of that lever arrangement. It's great. This Unimog has the standard winch, not all do, and the weights I've given are for the vehicle with the winch. It is a PTO winch or power takeoff, which means it's driven by the engine, not by the electrics. The winch is rated to 62 kilonewtons, which translates to around 6,300 kilograms or 14,000 pounds. The wire rope on it is about 30 metres long at 14 millimetres diameter, and one interesting thing about the winch is that there is no way to pay it out under power. You've got to pull it out, but it will pull back in under power. To operate the winch, first engage the dog clutch so it's not in free spool, then engage the PTO lever in the cabin, set the idle speed with the hand throttle, and then clutch up to operate the winch. You can vary the speed using either the hand throttle or the foot throttle. And to stop, just dip the clutch to disengage the winch and then shift the PTO lever back. You can also drive the winch, and all you've got to do then is simply engage a gear, usually first, when the winch is operating. The fairlead is also equipped with this clever device which ensures that the cable is wound evenly on over the drum, and so you don't get some bird's nesting problems. There's also a friction brake on the left hand side of the winch, but we couldn't get that to work on ours. Now, if your MOG doesn't come with a winch, well, you can fit an aftermarket one. This is a winch cradle and run the £25,000 winch, courtesy of MOG Central. And you can also fit one to the back as well. Then I decided to take a look in the back of the MOG because it is a pretty big wide open load space, although it's nearly 1.5 metres off the ground. So let's see how big this thing is. So put the tape measure over here, and we find that it's about 2400 that direction. It's just a bit over 4 metres, so pretty big. And what we can also see is there's a whole bunch of tie downs here as well. So there's there, and also at the back here. So yeah, a pretty impressive load space for whatever you want to put in here. Maybe a Suzuki Jimny. So here's a quick comparison between Unimog and Ranger. Unimog's much heavier, 6,800 kilograms. The Ranger stock, mine isn't stock, 2250 or thereabouts. Unimog can take a payload of 5.5 tons, which is more than the Ranger weighs. Its payload is only 1,000 kilograms. Length is 6.5 metres for the Unimog, 5.5 or thereabouts for the Ranger. Mine's a bit longer because of the bull bar and the canopy at the back. Wheelbase 3.85 metres for the Unimog, 3.22 for my Ranger, so quite a bit longer for the Unimog, but not massively so given its size. And power, 124 kilowatts, 524 newton meters, 8-speed manual for the Unimog. Ranger, 147 kilowatts, more powerful, bit less torque and 6 speeds, so the Unimog's not exactly fast. Now the height of the Ranger is about 1.8 metres, the Unimog over 3 metres, width a lot narrower at about, again, 1.85 metres. Unimog is just on the legal limit at a bit under 2.5 metres wide, and tyre diameters 31 and 46, so quite a difference. And this is what the track difference looks like, and that's an excerpt from part 2 of this video series. And if you can't wait for that, well, maybe you want to take a look at my Tatra 8x8 truck explanation. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, and keen to hear from any Unimog experts.